Good evening, Supreme Leader. Thank you for having me in the DPRK today. Pyongyang is a very beautiful city, and I am honored to be the first Western journalist to interview a member of your dynasty.
Thank you, and welcome to Pyongyang.
Thank you. You took me on a very beautiful tour this morning with a top-down limousine, and when I say that the scenery was unimaginable, truly it was. I mean, from the city to the outskirts to the fields, everything had its own hint of beauty.
Thank you. We appreciate this a lot.
Now, let's get right into some questions. Do you believe that North Korea is a hostile actor on the global effort to maintain peace and stability?
Now, this is exactly the portrait that the imperialists in Washington, D.C. want to spread about our nation. I would like to ask you for only 30 seconds of your time for a little history.
Of course. Take as much time as you need, Supreme Leader. We are not restrained by time. Absolutely.
So in 1392, the Empire of Joseon was created by General Yi Seong-gang, who united the Koreas into one of the most flourishing and intelligent civilizations in its time. The Korean people were united by the Joseon dynasty and by the Joseon Empire. We were always a people who were hardworking and valued our traditions a lot. We were always focused on ourselves. We never invaded anybody. We never attacked anybody. But it is clear, crystal clear in our history that foreign elements always made us the victims of imperialist aggression. The first invasion by Japan didn't occur in the 19th century. It occurred in 1592. That was the first Japanese invasion. They attacked Joseon during the Imjin War in 1592. You see, they destroyed our cities, they destroyed our villages. And since then, my friend, even then, and I'm getting a déjà vu moment, but even then, the people who helped us were ourselves, as well as the Ming China, the Ming dynasty of China. Our brethren, they helped us kicking out the Japanese, so we won. But then, in the 19th century, the golden age of imperialism, before World War II and even before World War I, in the golden age of imperialism, they attacked us. The Japanese annexed Korea in 1910, destroying all what we built, raping our culture, destroying and massacring what we love. So as you see, we were always the victim of imperialism. And now I'm getting to the end of the history. So in 1910, Korea was officially in the hands of the Japanese invaders, right? And my father, the eternal leader, Kim Il-sung, was a glorious, not even he was the face of the Korean resistance during the Japanese occupation. He was a brave man who rallied thousands, hundreds of thousands of men, even millions to resist the Japanese. And he liberated Korea and created the DPRK. Obviously, the United States created and occupied the south of our land. They spit on the Korean peninsula. They occupied the south. And my father wanted to end this, as we know. And we were very close to end this. He liberated 99% of the territories until the Americans intervened and used more bombs than they used against Nazi Germany. Do you know this, Danny?
I have heard such things, Supreme Leader, and it was similar in the Vietnam War, where the United States took massive amounts of bombs, or what they called bomblets. They were small, little butterfly bombs. They looked almost like children's toys.
Exactly.
And they would attract
civilians.
Yes, I mean, the 60s and the advancement of technology has shown that war is absolutely terrible.
This is definitely, and it is sad that our people were always the victim of this. To finish the story, the Americans used more bombs than they used against Nazi Germany, against the Korean people. Everything in the DPRK was destroyed. And we still defended our lands. We won this war. We are alive.
And if I may, Supreme Leader, do you feel, or does your government feel, or your people even feel some animosity towards the United States since that war, even to this day?
The United States is, until this day, the enemy of the Korean people. They are not only the enemy of the Korean people, but they are the enemy of the world. It is the difference that the Korean people know this, but the world is in a Stockholm Syndrome situation. But the DPRK will not rest until the world opens their eyes. The Americans are our enemies, on paper as well as by blood. We never signed a peace agreement, and we will not sign a peace agreement until Korea is reunified.
Well, you actually just answered one of my next questions, which was, would North Korea be willing to sit down with the United States and your southern neighbor and recognize that South Korea is a country and to ensure peace within the Korean Peninsula? Or is that still out of the question even at 60 years later?
Very interesting question. So not even a decade ago, not even 10 years ago, the United States of America mass mobilized the southern border. And it was not the United States who de-escalated the situation, it was the DPRK who de-escalated the situation, because we had soldiers from the DPRK aiming guns against their brethren in the south. We aimed guns at each other because the United States created tensions in the region. And
later, wasn't North Korea the nation that invaded the South and started the war?
This is a different situation. This is a completely different situation. I'm talking about not even 8 years ago.
Oh,
it is no problem. When even the GCC Arabs were in the south. So we had a mass mobilization of NATO and the GCC in the south, and it was the DPRK who defused the situation. We entered into contact with our southern colleagues, and we told them that we shouldn't fight each other just because the United States won it. So to answer your initial question, we are always in dialogue with the Koreans, with our Korean people, and we will always stand in dialogue, but we will never ever approve and ignore the situation that half of our population is in a occupation that causes mass suicide and depression rates that the world has never seen before.
Well, thank you, Supreme Leader. You answered those questions quite well for the first one. Now moving on to the next one. How has North Korea changed in the years since your father's passing? He founded the nation and created the idea of Korean communism. And how has your nation proceeded after that?
Thank you for the question, Danny. As I said, my father was the most important person in the fight against the Japanese. He liberated the Korean people. He created our glorious Juche ideology, which has elements from communism, but is a unique ideology. Nobody has the system that we use. And we obviously developed a lot since my father's passing. We have a saying, he is the eternal leader. He sees us. He is always with us. He guides us even when he's not physically here anymore. And we changed, obviously. Of course we changed since his passing. We became stronger. We overcame the arduous march. We overcame so many challenges. We are growing, and we are the most vocal nation and the most vocal people against American imperialism. We are getting stronger day by day. and this will continue until we are reunited with our brethren. We don't seek to harm anybody in this planet. We just want justice.
Alrighty, moving on, Mr. Supreme Leader. Does the future Kim dynasty hope to open your nation to the world and allow especially tourism and possibly more interviews such as this with other Western outlets, maybe CNN or Fox News or NBC? Would any of the Kim dynasty from now into the future be interested in doing that?
To answer your question, I have not the slightest interest in propaganda outlets from the globalist Illuminati like the CNN, and I don't really care what they say about my nation or myself. The lion doesn't care about the opinion of the sheep. But we are a nation that is open. We are open for tourism. Everybody's able to admire the DPRK, and we have a lot of tourists from all over the world coming to us, bowing to the statue of the eternal leader and finding great interest in our system. And we are always open for good journalism, Danny. This is why you are sitting here.
Of course, Supreme Leader, and I have reported on your nation and your region many times, actually, through BNN.
To finish the answer, we are very open, and we are getting a lot of emails from very disappointed American citizens. I have an email in front of me right now. We've printed it out. It is from James Shekel Group at gmail.com. He says that he is very disappointed that the minimum wage in the United States of America isn't enough to pay his rent. So he has no home, he's homeless, and he asked for a visa. He asked to come to Pyongyang. And we will definitely get into contact with this man. And there are a lot of emails like this. The United States is failing, and more eyes are opening themselves. More people want to live in the system that we have. Free housing, free food, a system, and family values.
Yes, and I think that the United States is notorious for struggling with homelessness, while nations such as North Korea and even European countries tend to provide better for their populations and struggling homeless issues. But you had mentioned previously the presence of GCC nations along the southern border between North Korea and South Korea. And I thought that might just be a perfect segue into the next question, which, how does the Supreme Leader feel or view Islamic radicalism?
To answer this question, let us look how America views Islamic radicalism. So they claim now that the Taliban are Islamic radicals, even terrorists. But wasn't it the United States of America that armed these individuals against the Soviet Union back then? Wasn't it the United States that helped Al-Qaeda getting stronger against their enemies in the Middle East?
I believe that you're referring to the Mujahideen in Afghanistan.
The Mujahideen are the Taliban, this is right. And in our eyes, the current government of Afghanistan, the patriots, the Mujahideen, they aren't terrorists. They are patriots. Really? They stick to their values.
Even though you believe them still to be American funded or originally from American organizations?
I was speaking about the past. Now, in the past, the Americans funded these organizations. The Americans switched to hate them once they realized, all right, they don't fully bow to American orders. So now they are suddenly enemies. And the DPRK has great relations with people who are waking up. And the Mujahideen woke up. Iran woke up. Hezbollah woke up. And we will continue to stand with our partners worldwide who are waking up. The newest addition is Amsterdam, the Netherlands. The people woke up and elected a left-leaning government. Just minutes after these elections, there were threats of war by the usual warmongers in this imperialist alliance, NATO. They were threatening them with war. Now, are you seeing what is happening? So democracy is good unless people are getting voted who are not bowing to the United States. This is the real terrorism.
And so, just to understand your point, you believe that the United States is the true perpetrator of global terror, and Miss Supreme Leader, correct me if I'm wrong, but you have just essentially endorsed Islamic radicalism and terrorism, and
that is the only terrorism which I see in the world is American imperialism. The strikes on Libya, the carpet bombardment of the DPRK in the Korean War, this is terrorism. If some Afghani people want to defend their way of life, are they harming anyone with defending their way of life? I don't think so.
Well,
it's not terrorism. Terrorism is American imperialism.
Well, Supreme Leader, let me ask you this. Was it terrorism when an attack was carried out on the Olympic Games not too long ago in Nigeria that killed 204 Americans and 251 people? Was that not terrorism?
The interesting point is that all the media outlets are only speaking about the American people who died on this thing, on this attack. There were a lot of other humans who died there, but it is only the Americans who get a special status, and the DPRK is not approving of this. We think that every human being, every civilian dying is one too much.
Well, I believe that any memorial that would be set up would be in memory of all people, not just the Americans that lost their lives there. But Supreme Leader, I really appreciate you delving into that topic. And you had mentioned previously that the Democratic Republic of Korea has excelled in research and technology in the last few decades. And there have been reports in the West that the DPRK has developed a nuclear weapon and successfully tested a nuclear weapon. And so I wanted to ask, does your nation or you yourself intend to use a nuclear weapon, and who would you use it against first if you had the chance?
First of all, I would like to, of course, approve that we are a nuclear nation. We have not only one nuclear weapon, but we have a large stockpile of nuclear weapons. We created this nuclear arsenal in the defense of our ideology, in the defense of our nation, and the defense of our future. In case of war, we will definitely use our nuclear arsenal.
In case of war, and do you still acknowledge that that North Korea and South Korea and the United States are still technically in a state of war?
We are in a state of war, yes.
And so, would North Korea be willing to strike the United States preemptively if they felt that, since this state of war still exists, would the Democratic Republic of Korea be willing to drop a nuclear bomb on the United States?
The United States is in our nuclear reach.
I think that's answer enough. Thank you, Supreme Leader. And on to the next question. You have elaborated on this quite a bit, actually, and I wanted you to expand a little bit and emphasize some points. Is Western imperialism a true threat to the world? And what does the Supreme Leader say to those who claim that imperialism in practice has ended?
First of all, I would like to know who makes such silly statements that imperialism would end.
Well, many, at least within the Western Hemisphere, associate imperialism with a crown or a monarchy, and the British Empire, mainly. But this new idea of Western imperialism from an Eastern perspective has intrigued many Americans. And
so I have a question to you, Danny.
Of course.
If you paint in blue, so imagine shit from a car and you paint it gold, it is still shit, am I right? But with gold color. And this is the situation of colonialism and imperialism. So yes, the British lost their empire, rightfully so. The French lost their colonial holdings on paper, rightfully so. But what we are still seeing in Africa, in the Middle East, and around the world is neo-colonialism and imperialism. The African nations are still suffering from the same nations that destroyed them since centuries. So I would like to say no, imperialism is far from over. And we also see it from the United States day and night. It is not over. But we will continue to fight until it is over.
And how do you think the United States enables or portrays Western imperialism since 2000 in the modern age?
Blackmailing, gaslighting, assassinations, CIA coups. The recent example is the ultimatum against the people of Iraq were couped. They were forced to coup Saddam Hussein and install a U.S. puppet regime to invite American troops. This is the recent example. Another example is the United States, who illegally striked our Libyan allies. They strike towns, they also strike some military installments, but they killed civilians with it, just because the Libyans had some nuclear devices for the defense of their nation. Now I'm asking, does this give China or Russia or Iran the same ability to strike nations who have American nuclear weapons? As an example, Germany has American nuclear weapons stationed since the Cold War, as well as Turkey. So is Turkey now a target, a rightful target of the Russian nation?
Well, Supreme Leader, was Libya under the Russian umbrella? I don't believe that they were within the Russian nuclear umbrella. They just had illegally violated the nuclear proliferation treaty.
This is not true. This is exactly what I'm saying. Libya got the umbrella from the DPRK, if we want to say it like this, which is totally in their right. They didn't have their own nuclear weapons. They had ours for their defense. And America offers the same for nations like Turkey, etc. So America struck Libya because of their decision. So is Russia allowed to strike Turkey now, by the logic of the imperialist? As you see, there's a lot ongoing. And to answer your question, yes, imperialism is still a thing. And yes, we will continue to fight against it.
Well, thank you, Supreme Leader. How does the Supreme Leader feel about the developments in Russia over the last few years and the rise of the Bolshevik Nationalist Party? And does North Korea itself align with their interpretation of National Socialism?
So, first of all, the DPRK is not aligning with any ideology, really, which is currently in the world. We have our own huge system, which has elements of communism, as I mentioned, one of the early questions. And the fall of the Soviet Union was the biggest geopolitical error in the 21st century. And the Russian people woke up, and we totally stand with them. We totally stand with them as allies in the defense of their way of life and geopolitical interests.
And do you believe that this new party and this new Russia still lays claim to former Soviet states, especially and in particular within Eastern Europe?
This is for the Russian government to decide.
Of course. And you had mentioned that they practice a different form of, that you practice Juche, which is not necessarily communism, but has some communist elements within it. Does Russia still align itself with the Democratic Republic of Korea? And do they still support your nation monetarily and militarily?
First of all, the DPRK evolved itself a lot in the last years. We are not in need of any aid of any form. We have economical ties with the Russians where we help each other with investment packages, mutual investment deals. And to answer your question, we don't need any help, but we work together with the Russians, definitely. We help each other out in important diplomatic points. We stand closely with Russia in these times because we clearly see what's going on. The United States and her proxies are encircling the Russian nation currently, and the DPRK stands close with our partners in Moscow, and we will continue to do that. We have very good ties with each other. We visit each other often. I think this should answer your question.
And you had mentioned briefly previously to the last question that North Korea has been providing, at least to Libya, for example, nuclear weapons or weapons capable of missiles capable of carrying a nuclear warhead to Libya. And I was wondering, does Russia support this as well? Are they facilitating and supporting the exportation of North Korean nuclear weapons across the world?
We only offered my good friend Gaddafi these devices to save his nation from imperialism. And after Gaddafi, from his own decisions, invited us to take them back, we obviously supported this decision. So we are not arming other nations with nuclear material in order to create any tensions. We don't do that. And quite frankly, we don't need the approval or support from any nations to decide anything. So we don't know if Russia supported it, and quite frankly, we don't care about it because we will always take sovereign decisions for our people.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Kim, Supreme Leader. Are you aware that your nation has been accused by particularly those in the West of being a threat to the world? And how do you feel about this?
The lion doesn't care about the opinion of the sheep, and I don't really care what the West is saying. The West is obviously blaming nations who are not folding themselves, who are not bowing to this globalist agenda. And the DPRK will continue to stick for its people and its sovereignty. If it is dangerous to be anti-imperialistic, to stick to your own values and to be a sovereign nation, work for your people and not for foreign interests, then yes, then we are goddamn dangerous, and we will continue to promote that. But we think that this imperialism is dangerous, and more people are waking up worldwide.
And on to our final question of this evening. how does the Kim dynasty view the DMZ along your southern border? And do you believe it provides security for your country, or do you view it more as a threat or simply just a minor inconvenience?
The inconvenience is the presence of the United States in our borders, in our peninsula. And this will be eradicated.
And so you hope that one day the DMZ will one day be removed, I would assume.
Well, I don't hope. The Korean people will be united again. This is a guarantee.
Do you believe it to be under your rule and within your lifetime?
It will be from my offspring for sure, from my blood,
Your children.
blood of my father.
Do you think,
Korean.
and in your opinion, speaking of your children, who would you appoint as your successor upon your passing, your inevitable passing? What may it hopefully be a long way away, but who would be your heir?
I have a lot of great children who will be able to lead this nation.
That's without a doubt. And you also have a few other family members, I believe a sister and a brother, right?
I have them, yes.
Do they hold government positions?
My brother is an ambassador in Iran. He's a very great diplomat.
Well,
Everybody in my family is superior and intelligent, and we have great blood, great intelligence, and we will definitely continue to work for the best of the Korean people and the world.
well, thank you so much, Supreme Leader, for your time. It's been truly an honor to interview such a prominent figure of our time, such as yourself, and a man of great history and legacy, truly. May your life continue to be long and prosperous, and thank you for having me in Pyongyang.
Thank you, Danny. I wish the best for your career, and I hope you will enjoy your days in Pyongyang.
Why, thank you. I hope we can do this again, and it's been a great time, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.